You have no doubt lost hope. So many times you wouldn't be here if you had lost hope. Your expectations largely did not get met. Your attempts at saving the relationship, I mean, you did the best that you knew how to do, and I'm not faulting you one bit. Your heart was in the right place. But your effort to get him back into the relationship and to be emotionally reciprocal largely went nowhere. And there might have been times where it looked like he's changed in 2 weeks or so. By God, I think we've turned a corner, just to realize on week 3, no, right back to square one again. And so you have had the thought, justifiably so, I'm not about to get my hopes up again because my heart can't stand another letdown. I'm just not going to do it. And so you almost, as self-preservation, again, totally understandable, you've hit a state of hopelessness just to keep, that was your version of trying not to get re-injured. Not a bad plan. But it might be a tool that worked to a degree for a while that might have outlived its usefulness. And it might even be at the root of your current misery, this hopelessness business. It's not uncommon for around this time of the progression of things for some NT wives to think that they're doing a lot of the work. So I would say if you would stop doing the work that you've been doing, and that's really kind of the point of this class, is you have been spinning your wheels too much and burned up a lot of time and energy and sanity getting little to no cooperation, we will say. So if you will stop doing the work that you've been doing and just do this new work, your workload will actually decrease, not increase. And plus, as you practice the new work, which is your assignments, the stuff you've been journaling about, it will become a new habit if you're consistent with it over time, and that's going to run on autopilot. So the old habits that you had, and I know your heart was in the right place. You didn't know what you were dealing with back in the day. But if you will just do the new work that we're discussing, you're actually going to cut your workload. A lot of times she says, well, if I engage in this healthy emotional detachment business, aren't I disconnecting emotionally and doing the same thing to him that he did to me? You're going to be the opposite of emotionally reciprocal now. You're going to be the one to keep the spouse at arm's length and like that. And you, being the nice lady that you are, and probably too nice sometimes, feel guilty. Oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. I'm detaching from him emotionally. Am I now doing the same thing to him that he's doing to me? So just know that if you have, I'm not accusing you of being a little on the codependent side, but if you're a little on the codependent side, and if you tend to feel guilty that, oh, does this mean that I'm now losing respect for him or losing love for him or falling out of love with him? Or just know that comes with the territory. It's not uncommon. In fact, I would go so far as to say, expect to feel some guilt when you start to detach from him. We went into great detail about the difference between healthy detachment versus unhealthy. Many of you may have had the thought, something along the lines of, at least with this guy, I don't know how things could be any better. Or worse yet, I don't know how things can keep from deteriorating, because in most cases you have given it your best shot. You've tried a multitude of things, and you ended up here in this group, which is a sign that I'm getting nowhere other than making myself sick. And I'm not saying you're still stuck in the past, but we definitely want to, if you are, and probably at some level from time to time you still are, we've got to move forward. And so I want you to begin thinking about begin the business of how can I have a vision for a better future. The opposite of that might be hopelessness. And this is where there is no vision for how things could be better. You had hope way back in the day with him, didn't you? You had hope, especially when you first realized, well, there's this thing called Asperger's syndrome. Maybe there's things that can be done. And you tried everything that you knew to try. But if you're like most of the other NTs that I work with, your hope was dashed time and time and time again. And now you're at the point where I don't even want to get my hopes up again. Your hope was that you could have hope in him and trust in him, and he'd be your teammate and your soulmate and would be right there by your side and would be moral comfort for you when you needed it, affection when you needed it, and so on. But as you have found out with an autistic brain who's not necessarily very socially or emotionally intelligent, nor has much in the way of social and emotional needs, you realize that I honestly just cannot count on this person. So you want to stop giving him too much power. For example, he has to say or do certain things or I can't be happy. Or he has to live up to my expectations or I slip into a depression. Or he has to avoid saying or doing certain things or I feel like I'm less of a person or my self-esteem gets tanked. The bottom line is this: you can't count on him. And if the truth be known, you really can't count on anybody. Some people will move. Some people will die. Of course, you're glad you had the relationship with them while they were local and alive, but people come and go all the time. You cannot count on any one person to be there in a meaningful way for your entire lifespan. You can count on God if you're a person of faith, which I am. He's not going anywhere. As a species, we weren't hardwired, ladies, to hide or recoil or live in victim mode. We were designed, say by God, the universe, whatever term you want to use, to move forward and conquer. You have some doubt about that? Just look at your history books. As far back as there is recorded history, you will see incidents where the humans moved forward and conquered. That's why we're still here today. If we weren't hardwired that way, we wouldn't be here. So we are always shooting for growth. We're always shooting for expansion. We're always shooting for improvement. And you don't have to agree with it. It wouldn't matter because it's in your DNA. What I just said, it's in your DNA anyway. Whether you agree with it or not doesn't change the fact that it's in there. You're responsible for finding meaning in your life. And now we've talked about hopelessness. It's where there's no vision for a future. We want to talk about hope. But before we talk about hope, you have to know that it's your job to find hope. It's your responsibility for finding your happiness, not his. If he has to do certain things in order for you to be happy, you can't live like that anymore. So hope is positive anticipation, which is having some sort of vision for a better future. We all have to have some idea of how things can be better tomorrow. Otherwise, there's really no reason to get out of bed. You have lived and breathed negative anticipation for too long. What's the next thing he's going to say or do that's going to hurt? We have to stop that destructive cycle of negative anticipation and replace it with positive anticipation. You need something to look forward to, kind of almost like a psychological carrot at the end of a stick. So, how many times have you replayed the movie in your head where he did you wrong? You have to stop playing that movie and replace it with a new movie, which is going to be entitled, we'll just call it My Vision for a Better Future. You can't find hope in just one person. In this case, him. That's putting all your eggs in one basket. That's very dangerous. It's giving him too much power. He has to say certain things in order for me to be happy. He has to do certain things in order for my self-esteem to be intact. He has to live up to my expectations, or it results in my depression. Or he has to avoid saying or doing certain things, or it damages me in some shape, form, or fashion. And you have, and I'm not faulting you, because you thought you married a golden retriever, but you married a lone wolf. Someone who is very independent, autonomous, low in social and emotional skills, low in social and emotional needs. So for you to make your happiness, joy, peace of mind, whatever, contingent upon what he says or does, that's like taking a pile of $100 bills, your hard-earned money, and putting it out there on the street, praying to God the wind doesn't blow it away. You can't put yourself at that kind of risk anymore. You can't count on him, can you? I'm not saying he's failed you 100% of the time. You can't bet on him to follow through. You wouldn't be here if he always followed through. And I'm not trying to trash him. He's probably a good guy. I would probably like him fine. He's probably smarter than me. And it's not just him. You honestly can't count on anybody, any one person. Now, there's some people that you feel like, they're pretty safe. They pretty much come through for me all the time. They're always there for moral support. So, but even those people might get sick and die. I'm not saying just when I say you can't count on anybody, I'm not saying that they're always going to let you down purposely. But I know I've adopted the philosophy a long time. I can't count on anybody because they might move, they might die, they might get sick. There's so many different things that can go wrong. You don't want to, at this point forward, don't put your eggs in one basket ever again, unless you're a believer, which I am. Certainly can count on God. He's not going anywhere. He's not going to get sick. He's not going to move to Tahiti. He'll be around. So we want to find hope somewhere. And by the way, that's your job. You're hunting down hope is your responsibility. Happiness, finding happiness, your job. You need to realize that you have a lot of control. In spite of all the mess in this marriage, you have more control than you're actually giving yourself credit for. And you have the power to create a new future. Some of you may not believe that, but just because you don't believe it doesn't mean it's not the case. Going in circles is part of going through it. So you can envision a bunch of circles moving this way. And so some days there's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Some things you will never be able to let go of. Some things you will be able to let go of quickly. Some things you'll let go of completely and then they'll come back later on. So it's not linear. If you get to acceptance in the grief cycle, depending on circumstances and what kind of bad day you might be having, you may bounce back to anger. Sometimes you may bounce back to denial. Sometimes you may stay stuck in bargaining. So it's definitely not linear. And so just be prepared to get a full spectrum of this. I may go to my grave and never fully let go of this. Or this other thing that I think I would never be able to let go of. For some reason, something clicked and I finally have let go of it. I thought I was over this. Clearly I'm not. I thought I wasn't over this. Clearly I am. So it's just going to be kind of a mixed bag. But the big message here is there is no rush and there's no wrong way to do it as long as you're doing it. It being staying in some version of recovery, using some component of the recovery process. It could be something as simple as just staying in touch with the ladies on the Facebook group. It could be something as simple as, well, maybe I need to process a little more. You go get your journal. And because a lot of times writing, I would strongly recommend that you write too rather than type. Sometimes writing stuff when you're not really sure, you have a bunch of question marks. Sometimes just going in and doing just a bunch of free writing where I'm not going to monitor my thoughts. I'm just going to kind of let the pen go. Sometimes you'll find answers just through the process of writing. There's no rush in letting go of resentment. In a nutshell, the antidote to letting go of resentment is forgiveness. And forgiveness is just this. I'm going to catch myself replaying the past hurts in my head. I'm going to catch myself flashing back to past hurtful memories. And then instead of ruminating about it and playing that whole damn movie again, I'm going to catch it and go, okay, yep, I remember this hurtful thing that happened last year. And I'm not going to entertain that thought. I'm not going to jump into my seat at the movie theater, get my bag of popcorn, and play that whole damn movie again. It's not. So letting go of resentment is simply, I'm not going to replay those old hurtful memories. I'm not ignoring them. They're going to pop in my head. And what was done is not okay. So it's not getting him off the hook or making excuses for him. It's simply, forgiveness is simply, when the thoughts of past hurts enter my head, I'm not going to sit there and waller in it and ruminate it and go over the whole thing. So forgiveness is for you, nothing to do with him.
Hey guys, this is Mark, and this is a message to the autistic spouses out there to help you make sense of this Cassandra syndrome business. And by the way, there are many NT husbands that experience Cassandra syndrome as well. So kind of the backstory on this, this is what I've run into over the years of working in this field with the autistic spouse and the NT spouse. We use the example of the NT wife and the autistic husband. What goes on initially is he presents really well. The autistic husband presents well. Some people call that masking. He just wants to be liked and approved of. Why wouldn't he? And so he provides his NT partner, soon-to-be wife, with a lot of affection and attention and emotional reciprocity, give and take in conversation, and so on. So then after the newness of the relationship kind of wears off, the autistic spouse will kind of gravitate back towards his special interests or work. And so she's kind of feeling left behind, like, what happened? You know, we were connected and he's drifting away. And he doesn't even know he's drifting away, but she does. And she is starting to feel what I refer to as emotional deprivation. It's like I'm not getting some of my needs met. I don't feel like I'm being listened to. I don't feel like I'm being understood. I don't feel like I'm being validated. And she can only go on like that for a few years before it starts affecting her mental health and her physical health. And that is the Cassandra syndrome business, where if this goes on for decades, she's depressed and she's starting to have some autoimmune disease and so on, because she has to have that emotional connection in order to be healthy. The autistic spouse gets his emotional needs met through his special interests in work, especially if he enjoys his work and stays gone at work a lot. He's getting all his emotional needs met that way with non-social tasks, and he can hyper-focus on those tasks for extended periods of time, and he's getting his emotional needs met. But with the NT wife, she gets her primary emotional needs met through social activities, especially through her spouse. So when she's not getting that, she's losing because one of her primary needs is not getting met. And then she will often tell people what's going on. Let's say, for example, there are friends and family members that know the autistic spouse and the NT spouse, and they know both of them. And let's say the autistic spouse name is Steve and her name is Ann. So people know both Steve and Ann, but they don't see what goes on behind closed doors. They don't see what Ann sees. Ann sees a man who does frequent shutdowns, meltdowns, adult temper tantrums, doesn't show much in the way of empathy, doesn't provide moral support when needed. But outside of the home, other people see the two of them, and they think that he's a nice guy. Like, I know him. He talks fine, walks fine, looks fine, works fine. I think Ann's being melodramatic because she's always complaining about him, and I don't see it. He seems like a nice person. And so in this case, Ann is now in a double down position because the people that she talks to about what goes on behind closed doors, they kind of don't believe it. It's like, seems a little melodramatic. I don't think your husband is that bad of a guy. So now she's not only not getting her emotional needs met, but when she reports these things to other people, they don't really believe her. Until she gets in a community of other NT ladies suffering from Cassandra syndrome, and then they go, oh yeah, we know exactly what's been going on. And so, yeah, I would encourage any NT wives watching this video to be sure and hook up with other ladies going through the same thing. And on that note, I do have links below the video here in the description area and in the comment section. And I have a Cassandra syndrome recovery group, and you'll be rubbing shoulders with other ladies that are in the same boat as you. Anyway, that's it. For those of you autistic spouses who are not quite sure exactly what that means, here's the summary. You presented well in the beginning. She thought she was on the right track. After a while, you gravitated toward your special interest and or work. She felt emotionally neglected. It started affecting her mental health and her physical health. As she reported these things to other people, the huge disconnect between you and her, whenever she would mention this to some people who did not know anything about ASD level 1, they didn't really believe her. They thought that she was kind of being melodramatic and exaggeratory. And so now she feels not only mentally and physically sick, but she feels isolated. That is a summary of Cassandra syndrome right there. So, if your NT spouse, whether male or female, states that he or she feels like they're suffering from Cassandra syndrome, it would be great if you could extend a little grace and mercy, not beat up on yourself. And, oh man, I didn't realize I caused this and I must be a bad spouse. That's not the point of this video. The point of this video is for help you to understand what went on. And instead of spending energy beating up on yourself about it, spend that energy extending a little grace and mercy to your NT spouse. And listen to them, try to understand the hurt and validate that that's their experience and what can I do to help. Okay? Here's your line. You ASD spouses, here's the line. I want to listen to your hurt and I want to understand it fully. And I want to validate the fact that that's your truth and that has been your experience. And I'm sorry that this turned out this way. What can I do to help? Okay, that's your assignment. Part of the assignment is not beating up on yourself, okay? Okay, so you're a husband with autism spectrum disorder and your wife has said, I have Cassandra syndrome, and you don't know what it is. So here's what it is. It's all about this thing called emotional reciprocity. In the early going of your relationship, she would have said, yeah, we had give and take in conversation. We had affection. We did things together. I was important. He paid attention to me. But then over time, this emotional reciprocity waned. And then fast forward a few more years, and emotional reciprocity became virtually non-existent. And then she begged to get some emotional reciprocity, but it didn't happen. And so now she feels depreciated and deprived. That's Cassandra syndrome in a nutshell. Hey, this is Mark Hutten. Would you like to schedule a one-on-one Zoom call? Okay, it's so simple. Just look under any of my videos in the description area. Click on this Calendly link. Now you see my calendar. Pick your month, your day, anytime that's available. Enter your name and email address. Then you'll get a follow-up email with the Zoom link on the day and time that you picked. And voila, we will talk.